Finally, it's here. The official release date for House of the Dragon. It is coming and apparently will overlap at least partly with Amazon Rings of Power. However, there's still a lot of speculation. We won't be getting the full season, that they will chop the season up into two parts. The first couple of episodes will focus essentially on the young version of these characters. And if you've been following the channel as well as my updates, this will essentially be Millie and those cast members. And the later episodes will concentrate on the older versions of Alicent and the rivalry for, of course, control of Westeros and a lot of dragon fights. George Martin has endorsed this. He highly recommends it. So it looks like it's going to be a winner. But I want to focus here on the Matt Smith angle due to Morbius. Now, I'm not going to do Morbius itself. I'm going to do this only a little bit. I will do a full-on review elsewhere. But essentially in Morbius, we're having a story where Morbius, the title character, faces off against Milo, basically his brother, and that's played by Matt Smith. Smith is actually not in a lot of the promotional stuff. So you may be shocked he's in the movie. I was shocked he was in the movie. I'm like, he's in the movie? Yes, he's a major part of the movie. For whatever reason, they didn't focus on it. What is interesting is, even though Morbius is getting hammered by critics, though doing a little bit better with audience scores, he is actually being almost universally praised. And a lot of people say he is probably the one redeeming factor in Morbius. So you should see Morbius, if for no other reason than his performance, which is receiving a lot of praise. It's not necessarily a great acting performance. They're just saying it's very committed. It's at least enjoyable. And a lot of the movie apparently is just very dreary, stupid, generic. But he kind of stands out as providing at least a memorable performance. So will he do the same for House of the Dragon? Will he be able to redeem that as well? Well, I gotta say, along with the release date, they're releasing a few more photos. Some of them I think are very impressive, but some of them I think also show the flaws and problems with the show and its conceptualization of being so focused on essentially the history of the Targaryens, which I'm only slightly interested in. And I'm not going to hide where I stand. I don't really think Matt Smith was the right choice. I don't really see him as a Targaryen. His physicality doesn't strike me as powerful. He looks weird in the costume. But the photo actually looked great. I was actually surprised. He looked really amazing in the photo they released. But I have my doubts. So I'm not a big fan of Matt Smith. I don't hate him. I just don't quite see what the big hype is about. Like in terms of the Doctor Who universe, for David or some of the other doctors. I'm not beginning as a big fan of him. But I am open that maybe because he was also supposed to be in Rise of Skywalker. He ended up not being in the movie, but apparently it was supposed to be some major, incredible role that would have changed the whole Star Wars universe. So I think he's actually very talented. I don't think he's a bad actor. I just have not liked him in most of what he's done. And I'm probably not going to like Morbius because I'm a big comic book fan. And I love Morbius. I actually know Morbius way more than most people. I've read a lot of Morbius stories. So I probably have no interest in what he did in Morbius. But I am willing to be open-minded. So if he did something really interesting with a villain role in Morbius, maybe he can do something with House of the Dragon, which I think, at least for now, I am much more interested in Amazon Rings of Power. I think the lore is much more interesting. I think the setup is much more interesting. And yes, I know the controversies have sort of divided people, but those, frankly, are more interesting. Whereas House of the Dragon is really a much more corporate, manufactured thing. I'm much more interested in the other prequel series and the other ideas they have for expanding the universe of George R.R. Martin. And I recently read The Sand Kings, and I'm really stunned at how good that was. And I'm going to revisit the adaptation. So there's a lot of strong stuff within George's wider universe, but the Targaryens themselves, I don't find very fascinating, except in a few places. But they have a lot of good performers. I don't think Matt Smith is one of them, but I'm willing to be persuaded I'm wrong. So I'm crossing my fingers that Morbius is a good sign, that he can do something within an otherwise a mediocre story to really save it. So I'm hoping for the best, and maybe he'll do something distinctive, because a lot of people are going to die off. So if Matt Smith is one of the people killed off in the first season, at least hopefully his death is a memorable one. And there we are with an update on the House of the Dragon.